Welcome to Nandan Speaks. And in our special series, Facts About Topics, today we are going to discuss about the colonial history of Sri Lanka. And as it is the Independence Day of Sri Lanka, happy Independence Day to Sri Lanka. So let's talk about the first interactions of Europeans and Sri Lankans. So in 1505, when the Portuguese traders arrived at the coast of Ceylon. Ceylon is the name which Britishers called Sri Lanka. So when they arrived at the coast of Ceylon, at that time, 7 kingdoms were warring amongst themselves in Sri Lanka for dominance and could not defend themselves from the Portuguese. Portuguese built a port at Colombo and captured most of the land by the shore and spread their influence. Buddhists, by the way, Buddhists on the lowlands didn't like that, and many converted into Christianity. So many kingdoms even moved inland to stay from the Portuguese influence. So as you might be able to see, as I have even highlighted the color below in the map on the right side, the dark green color represents the area under complete control of Portuguese, and the light green color represents the sphere of influence of the Portuguese. So all the kingdoms were under high threat, which even survived. So then what happened? In 1638, the king of Kandy, Sri Lanka, signed a treaty with the Dutch to battle the Portuguese and return the land to him in return of trade monopoly being granted to the Dutch. That means that the king asked the Dutch to war the Portuguese, capture the lands and return them to the king of Kandy. But why would they do that? So in return, he granted them trade monopoly so that the Dutch could trade spices to Holland and other areas, and they could earn money. So that happened. But Dutch kept the lands under their heavy influence even after defeating Portugal, and uh, taxed the citizens even heavily, taxed the natives even heavily than the Portuguese did. All the events of the first contact with Europeans and then the Dutch, so that all is named the crisis of the 16th century. As you might can see in the map on the right side, I have highlighted all the areas controlled by the Dutch, and when you compare it to the Portuguese, it's much higher. So now comes the major and biggest player, British Ceylon. In around early 19th century, while Ceylon was still in Dutch sphere of influence, France set up a puppet government in Netherlands. So France invaded the Netherlands and set up his own government there, which was actually a puppet government. Means that France, it was actually a different government, but France controlled most of it. So and the British feared that the Ceylon would go into the hands of the French, as they had influence on Netherlands. So they captured it from the Dutch, but the locals wanted independence. So, like India and many other countries, the Ceylon a national congress was formed, Ceylon National Congress. But it didn't have a strong loop between different groups. So it didn't stay a very strong alliance due to races and castes. And the caste system really didn't do good in this case. Because of the caste system, we couldn't unite. The Sri Lankans couldn't unite together. There is a similar story in Indian independence too. Then, on 4th February 1948, Dominion of Ceylon was formed. Finally, it was given considerable amount of autonomy. So, Dominion is basically, they have, like Canada is still a dominion. India was a dominion between 1947 to 1950. So it's like they have a king, and the British still have some control of either of name or some very little control, but most of the control has been given to the indigenous. So Sri Lanka was made a dominion of Ceylon, and the prime ministers were elected in a democratic system. The Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka was established on 22 May 1972. So that is the exact name of their government, like Republic of India or Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, just like that. It's the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka, and giving it complete independence from UK, England. So after dominion, as with India too, after dominion in 1972, it became a complete independence like India is, and UK, England has had no now has no now doesn't have any control over them. But soon there was a problem, and as you might be wondering, on the right side, this is the emblem of Sri Lanka, the republic. So let's move on. So here comes one of the major setbacks for the country, the civil war. There were two major ethnic groups at the time, even now, the Sinhalese and the Tamilians. So the Sinhalese had most of the power, and they had dominance in they had major dominance in the government. So they dominated the government and the democratic system. So a militant group called Liberation Tigers of Tamil Illam, which also operated in India, and the Sri Lanka government, with the support of Indian support, had a civil war. So as you can see on the right side, the belligerents Sri Lanka and India fought with Liberation Tigers of Tamil Illam. So they fought with Tamil Tigers Illam in a civil war, and later the Sinhalese won with the major country's resources and Indian support. So Sri Lanka is now moving on the path of progress and a peaceful and developed future. And finally, I wish a very happy Independence Day to all Sri Lankans and Sri Lanka, and let's hope they have a peaceful future. And thank you everybody for hearing this. And if you like my video, please like it and definitely subscribe and click on the bell button. And finally, happy Independence Day to Sri Lankans, and let's hope they